Okay, so in this video we're going to just go over a basic getting started with Jest tutorial. It's not going to cover much, we're just going to go into getting Jest installed, basic setup to common JS, JavaScript application, and a first test. And then we'll also just show the configuration required for an ES module setup. So what I've got here is a pretty much an empty repo. There's nothing. I haven't even got a basic package JSON set up here, so we're going to do that first. So I'm going to do npm init-y, which will give me my package JSON with some defaults in there. And all I'm going to do is just install Jest. So it's npm I Jest. That will install Jest, and we'll see in the package JSON now we have the dependencies listed there as Jest. I'd say maybe technically this should only be used in development, so you have it listed as a dev dependency. So we can do that with the -d flag on there, which will then change that to a dev dependency. In order to run Jest, so if I run npm test now, we get error no test specified, which is exactly what it says here. And if I can make this run Jest by just putting Jest in there. So the script is now test Jest, and if I run that again, we'll see we get Jest running, but we get no tests found. So we can run here we can now start to run our first test. So we can create a file. I'm going to put that in my source folder, and it's going to be called first test.spec.js. And we'll see if I now run that npm test again, we'll see we get a different error this time. So we've now found a test, but the test suite failed to run because the test didn't contain any tests. And note that the reason why it picked it up is because we've got this .spec in here. If I rename that to .test, I think this will also pick it up. So if I run that again, npm test, again we get the same error. If I rename that to if I remove the test from there, just call it a JS file, and I run that again, notice we get the first test where we get the first error where we get no tests found. And just to sort of show that it's, if I put .spec2 in there, we'll see if we run npm test, same thing again, and you can see actually it tells you in the output what it's trying to search for. So you can see there that it's searching for these kind of glob patterns. So you've got that one there, and you've got that one there. And the basics here is it's kind of anything in any folder, .spec or .test, in our case JS, but it could also be TS, and it could also be a TSX file or a JSX file. So I'm just going to rename that back to first test.spec, and now if I run that again. So let's create our first test. We can do that just simply by using the test keyword, and we can run that by obviously from the command line. We can either run npm test as we did before. Also within, if you're using IntelliJ, then from here you can just do Control-Shift-R within the file, or from within if you've got the focus on the test runner, Command R will also run that. So I'm just going to use the Control-Shift-R with the focus on the file. What we can also do in here is in the configuration. So again, this is IntelliJ specific. We can just put the watch flag in there and apply that and run that. And now we can run that, and now we can see that it carries on running, and as I change things it will keep on rerunning the tests. So I can put, that was our first pass, if I want this to now fail, I can just say throw new error, and I'll change that to first error, and we can see when I save the file straight away it kind of reruns and fails. I really like this because it lends itself to very much a sort of test-driven development approach where you can have the test and your implementation open at the same time, and you can just kind of be bouncing backwards and forwards between the two files. The test keyword can also be represented, I think, by the it keyword. So we can do that, and we can see now that one of the tests is passing, one of the tests is failing. We can see that the description for that test is first test. We can see the description for the one in the it block is should pass. Note that we can also nest these tests inside describe blocks, which allows you to kind of group your tests, and those describe blocks can be described, can be nested as well. So we can do describe, third describe, and we can do it should pass. There we go. Another one. So now you can see you've got nested things there. I'd say obviously try and be sensible about how you do that, because obviously if you get it nested sort of too much, then things can get confusing. But equally, if you don't use the nesting effectively, then you may well end up with very perhaps long and confusing test titles. So again, think about what it is you're testing, whether you've got the right amount of tests in the file. The test file is no different from any other file. There's probably a common sense length to that file, the number of tests that should be in there. There's a common sense length to each individual test. The tests are there to make your life easier. If it feels like the tests are making your life harder, then there's probably something going wrong. But we're not going to go into that too much here. Just wanted to show there are different ways of kind of like structuring your tests here. So we'll get rid of that. So we've got our first test. We've tried it with the test block and the it block. I'm just going to keep the test block for now, so that's now failing. As we saw in those other tests, the basic kind of means of testing whether something is correct or not is using the expect function. So this is basically testing that the thing which is under test meets some expected value. So we could put in here, for example, adder 2, 3, and 4, and we'd expect that to be 7, and we can run that, and we can see that adder's not defined. So we can go in here, we can create that function we created at the top level, and we can do that, and we can now do, say, let's do that. Let's do num1 and num2. So we can do num1 plus num2, and now when we run it, we see the test passes. And just to prove that that's working, if we change it to 8, it fails. It says expected 8, received 7. Change that back. Add a 3, 4 to be 7, and that's passed. So that's it. That's as kind of complicated as it gets. What I'm just going to do now is just create, in order to I want to test the I'm going to commit those changes. First test. I'm going to split that. I'm going to do ES module. Just ES module. So I want to show how we get this working for an ES module. Because if we go here and we change this to an ES module, no, that's not right. So I want type, and that wants to be module. No, get off. There we go. If I stop that now, if I run that, that still passes. What's going to happen if I now do adder.js? Let's cancel that. Come to here. Let's move that. Refactor. Move adder.js. So that's being exported from there. So now we've got an import. Now we're using an import here, because this is an ES module. ES modules use import, and now we get a problem with Jest. We get Jest encountered an unexpected token, failed to pass file, blah blah blah. So what we can see here, let's open up a new browser. Let me go to here. Let's bring that to here, and let's go Jest ES module. So we can see here about the ECMAScript modules, and we can see we've got these things here about how we get Jest to run. So we've got this execute node with experimental VM modules, and so you've got something like that, or you can do something like that. So I'm going to try that one. If we go back to here, and I go into my package.json, and I just replace that like that. If I stop that and rerun that, we now see that it still fails, and it's failing because of something. Let's go into here and let me run it from there. We'll see that it passes. Let me go to here, edit that configuration. Let's remove that. Okay, that. Now we go back to here and we rerun this. Now we still fail, and we're failing because we don't have. What are we doing? We're using node interpreter, node options. Possibly need to add in there experimental VM modules. So, okay, that. Try that again. Now it passes. We get a warning there, so we can add. So let's go node suppress warnings just in case. There we go. Blah blah blah. Node no warnings equals 1. So we go back to here, go into there. We can add that like that. Now when we run that, sorry, done it in the wrong place. Well, not the wrong place, but we also need to do it just here, possibly. Let's try that. Run that. No, hang on. It's in the wrong place. We possibly want some environment variables. 1, there we go, apply, okay, now we run that. Now our warnings are suppressed. Obviously you may not necessarily want that, but for the purposes of this, hopefully it kind of illustrates the point that you can suppress that warning that's generated by using experimental VM modules. But that's how you get Jest to run with ES modules. So you need to update the package.json script. You can see when we run it on the command line, we also got the experimental warning, and if I clear that and run it again, you'll see that this time we don't get the warning. So that's how you run Jest with ES modules. That's how, and also how you kind of suppress the warning that comes along with it. It's also how you configure the run configuration in IntelliJ. And yeah, the basic test setup. So hopefully that has been useful.